Thanks for tuning in to another episode of RIO's How To. Today we're going to look at how to fish sinking lines in a lake because we've got a lake and it's bright and sunny and there's no fish rising, so we need to go down. Let's have a look at what we're going to use. Today we're going to use a 10-foot long rod. I like 10-foot rods because I like to fish what's called the hang. I'll show you that when we're out there. So a 10-foot rod, about a 6-weight's ideal. We've got a range of sinking lines at RIO, call them In Touch Deep series. This is the Deep 3, which is what I'm starting off with. It sinks about 3 inches a second, hence the name Deep 3. And then the fastest sinking one we have is a Deep 7, which sinks at 7 inches a second. And these lines are in our black box, which is the Connect Core, the low stretch, which is really important, I think, when you're fishing sinking lines, because you want everything you can do in terms of sensitivity. One of the things I'll be showing you when we're out in the water is how to fish the hang, as I mentioned. And to that point, what you'll notice is there's a funny little blob in RIO's lines. And this blob right here is a 1-inch indicator mark. It's a hanging marker. And as I say, we'll show you what that's out there, but I'm showing you this so you can get an idea of what it is. We'll come back to the hang marker later on out in the water. And on the front end, when you're fishing sinking lines, you really don't need to be fishing lightweight stuff and fine. So I've got a 7.5-foot 1X leader here. 1X is very strong for trout, but you're going to get some big hits, so fish it. Well, you're not going to get miss fish because of it. But I know it's 7.5 feet long, but I've lengthened my leader to about 12 or 14 foot long, and you'll see why. Again, I'm going to show you a couple of tips when we're out there. And I've lengthened it with just a little bit lighter stuff, some 2X material. These are a selection of the flies. Right now I've got a whole bunch of small streamers, large streamers, wet flies, nymphs. Once we get out there, we're going to just run through some various patterns, different techniques to fish these different patterns. But this gives you a rough idea of the techniques and the tackle that we're using. So that's about it. Let's jump in the boat, get out, try and catch you a few fish. All right, sinking lines on, out in the middle of the lake, nice deep water here. Chosen a bit of deep water because it's bright and sunny. The fish aren't really showing on the top, so they're probably a bit down. And so I like to find a little bit deeper water, get a sinking line down there and see what we can find. And a couple of things I'm going to run through with sinking lines. I'm going to show you what's called fishing the hang. I'm going to show you what's called counting the depth, how to kind of determine what depth you're fishing. And then I'm going to show you how to change your line. Because, hey, if you're not catching fish, you might want to change line and get deeper or shallower. I'm going to show you some top tips to show you how to do that quickly. First of all, let's get the line out here. And so we'll pull off some line. And we've got this hang marker, which we just talked about. The hang marker, let's just get this line out a little bit first of all, and just show you what that hang marker is and why you have it. And there's a couple of reasons depending on what you do as an angler. First of all, the hang marker was developed by competition anglers as a way to fish the hang. The hang is an unbelievably good technique to catch fish. Fish will follow your flies in, and then a lot of people just cast, pop the fly out there again, and of course they'll miss fish because the fish, oh, where's that fly? Oh, it's gone. So fishing the hang, as it's called, is a technique where when you strip the line into a certain point and certain closeness to you, you stop retrieving, and that's what this hang marker is telling me. I'll pull it up to my finger like that. You stop retrieving, you lift your rod tip, and you just hang. And you're holding the line and the flies in the water underneath your rod tip for 10 to 20 seconds. It sounds like an awful long time, but believe me, this works, and it works really, really well. If you don't get a bump after those 10, 20 seconds, whatever patience you have allows you, you just lift it up slowly, watch the flies, check it out, do it again. So that's what the hang marker is originally designed for. The other reason, if you don't really want to fish the hang, it's a great idea and a great pointer to where your line ends. Because your sinking line sinks, it's very hard to know, especially if you're really new at fishing sinking lines, it's very hard to know where is your leader. When do you make the cast? Well, if you're fishing away here and let's say you're stripping in streamers, da-de-da, and you think, right, where should I cast? Well, if you get that hang marker close to your finger, you've only got a few feet of line outside, so it's very easy to pick up and make that cast. So you'll never pull a leader into your rod tip, and you'll never try and pick up too much line. So that's what the hang marker is. All our sinking lines have it, so look out for that if you're fishing sinking lines, as I think it's a really useful aid to you as an angler. Now, another thing we talked about was called counting the depth. And counting the depth really is a way of searching for the fish. We don't know where the fish are. They're not rising, so they're somewhere between the surface here to 20 feet or whatever the depth is. Or maybe they're not here, but let's assume they're here. When you're fishing in a boat, the first thing you want to do, of course, with a sinking line is let your line sink. So let's just get this line out here again and give you an idea of what this is. Counting the depth is very simple. You count once it lands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so that's 6, count of 6. So now I start retrieving, and I'll do 4 or 5 casts at a count of 6. Whatever my retrieve is, figure of 8 if I'm fishing nymphs, stripping if I'm fishing streamers, combination, whatever the retrieve is, but at that count of 6. And then if I don't get a fish, then let's say, let's just get this out for the sake of speed, and I've done it half a dozen times, I'm going to count to 8. 8-second count, then I know I'm deeper, and then 10 and 12 and so on and so forth. And because this is a type 3 line, sinks at 3 inches a second, I know if I count 9, it's going to be 27 inches down, so you got an idea of the counting the depth, the value of that. And when you know how deep the water is, that counting the depth really helps you. So those are 2 tips about sinking lines. Really, there isn't much else other than that in terms of the fishing techniques. Those are the fishing techniques that help you catch fish, fishing the hang and counting the depth. Obviously, as I said, you change your retrieve, you change your flies until you find something successful. The last thing I mentioned was about changing lines. And this, again, this comes from the competition world. And in competition and in fishing, let's face it, you're only going to catch fish when your fly is out there in the water out there in the water. So the longer you're dilly-dallying around, messing around, changing lines because you want to get deeper, the less fishing time you get. So with this, I'm going to show you what we do. Very simply, your line's out. You want to change line, you just wind your line in. And if you recall at the beginning of the conversation, I had this 7.5-foot leader with an extra 4 or 5 feet. Well, the reason is, if I wind my line in all the way up, or strip it in, whatever you want to do, so that I can wind the junction between the fly line and the leader right to the reel. My flies are still outside the rod. You then simply cut one leader off, make sure you don't lose it in case a fish grabs it, take the reel off here, grab your new reel, put that reel on, so we're going to just do like this. And then quite simply, what you're doing is you're just going to tie a regular clinch knot through this loop. You don't need many turns, the leader's thick so it'll grab easily. Do a 4-turn clinch knot, improve clinch if you really want to. And then once you've got that, chop off your tag end, strip your line out. Look at that. And then you're out fishing again. So that comes from competition fishing. Just a tip if you do want to do a lot of changing of your lines when you're fishing, just a way to keep speed. And that's why you want that long leader, because you can't do that if your leader's 5 foot long and your fly jams in the tip ring of the rod and you can't reach that loop-to-loop join. So there's a few tips there for you. Hopefully remember those, give them a shot. Right now, what we're going to do is going to go and drift down this bay and see if we can catch a fish using one of those techniques. All right, we're out here. This is the area we're going to fish. Sinking line out. Remember, the first thing is start counting the depth. 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to just go in on 8 seconds. And then when you're retrieving, you really want to mix your retrieve speeds up. You don't want to have one boring, constant retrieve like this. That'll catch fish, but you want to catch more fish. So you want to change your retrieves up all the time you're retrieving. I'll combine a figure of 8 retrieve, which is this little thing I'm doing with my left hand. I'll pause a lot, which is called the drop when you're letting your fly sink. I'll strip in, do short tweaks, pause, long retrieves. Oh yeah, there we go. Ooh, look at that. That's not bad, is it? Good strip on that one. Come on, bring it in. Bring him up. There he is. Awesome. Nicely done. Sweet. All right. Perfect fish. What a beautiful rainbow. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of How To catch fish on sinking lines. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode of How To on RIO's website. Nice. All right.